When I got my PhD degree from Northwestern University, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I certainly knew what I didn't want to do. Many of my classmates couldn't wait to go to Wall Street. They were going to make a killing in the stock market. I'm not knocking that. I didn't want to go into corporate America, nor did I want to teach. All I wanted to do, I wanted to find the answers to two questions. Question number one, why does one individual succeed while another fails? And question number two, why is one individual rich and wealthy while another is impoverished? So I carved out a list of 50 individuals, black men and women, who not only carved their name on the tablet of success, they climbed the back stairs to success. They didn't know me, but I certainly knew them, and I was going to interview them, trying to ascertain the answers to those two questions. Well, lo and behold, that list of 50 grew from 50 to 100, from 100 to 150. I quit counting at 150 interviews. Based upon my research, Success Magazine asked me to write an article, and I complied. Well, that particular article found the desk of W. Clement Stone. I just flew back from New York. I had interviewed Earl Graves, the publisher of Black Enterprise magazine. And when I got to my Atlanta home, there was a message on my answering machine. It was from W. Clement Stone. He said, "Young man, we heard about you. When can you come to Chicago? I would like to meet you." Well, 2 weeks later, me and my wife, we fly to Chicago, and we went to W. Clement Stone's office. There in his palatial office is Mr. Stone, seated behind a mahogany desk, smoking one of his Havana cigars with a bright flowered polka dot bow tie on. And he said to me, he said, "Young man, you're not the first person to go around this country interviewing successful African Americans." And I said, "I'm not?" And he says, "No." He says, "You know, Napoleon Hill was doing this at the time of his death." I said, "Are you serious?" He says, "More than serious." He reached across his credenza, pulled out the last 100 written pages of Napoleon Hill and dropped it in my lap. At the time of his death, Napoleon Hill was attempting to write a black version of his all-time classic, Think and Grow Rich. He got 100 pages into the manuscript before dying of a stroke. He was 87 years old. And W. Clement Stone held on to those 100 pages for 16 years until November 3rd, 1986, when I walked into his office. And I'm here to tell you that over a 7-year period, I like to tell people that I discovered the DNA to black wealth. Wealth is not a function of circumstance. It is not a function of condition. It is not a function of race, of gender, who your parents are, which side of the tracks you were born, how the cards were dealt. But wealth is a function of choice, and it is a function of discipline, and it is a function of decision, and it is a function of innovation, faith, and creativity. Those men and women who have won most in life have relied mostly on themselves. The men and women who are crazy enough to believe and think that they can change the world usually do. So this is a story that must be told. This is a story of black men and women who went from poverty, and in some cases below poverty, to reach their financial goals and objectives, and no one placed a microphone or a ball in their hand to do it. The first law of wealth is knowledge. Prosperity and wealth begins in the mind, but ends in the purse. We live and have our being in a capitalistic economy, and capitalism is not a dirty word. Capitalism is predicated upon the following fact: if you want to earn more, I suggest that you learn more. What I found in the focus groups, that the average black millionaire reads 3 to 4 books a month. The average black millionaire only watches 4 hours of TV a night. That equates to 28 hours of TV a week, when the average African American watches more than 75 hours of TV a week. I had a great interview with Antonio L.A. Reid of X Factor. And he shared with me that at one point in life, when he was the president of LaFace Records, he took 8 to 10 weeks out of his busy schedule to take a management executive course at Harvard. And I said to him, I said, "Antonio, what would compel you to do that? You and Babyface probably made more money over your lifetime with LaFace Records than you can spend in 10 different lifetimes. Why would you take an executive course at Harvard?" He said, "Well, number one, the bottom line, the record business is a business. But I learned long time ago that the moment that you cease to grow, that you dedicate yourself to lifelong learning, you begin to die. If you don't take in the information, if you don't read the books, if you don't study, and if you don't grow, somewhere out in the universe, somebody else will. And the moment that you meet that other person, you lose." The second law is decision. You've got to make a conscious choice that poverty will have no place in your life. As Steve Harvey told me when I had a chance to sit down and chat with him, you got to make life choices before life makes those choices for you. I had a great interview with a gentleman by the name of Victor McFarland. Victor McFarland is the founder of McFarland Partners, a real estate developer out in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And here is a gentleman who is well on his way to joining the ranks of billionaireship. And he was born and raised in a blue-collar working class town in Ohio to a single parent. And he told me that the first 12 years of his life, he lived in a one-bedroom apartment, and his mother had a couch in the foyer area of that apartment. And for the first 12 years of his life, that couch substituted as the bed that Victor and his sister slept on. And when he shared that anecdote with me, I became somewhat sympathetic and empathetic, and he cut me off at the knees during the interview. And he said, "Doc, no sympathy for me. As a matter of fact, those were probably the best 12 years of my life." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It was during the 12-year period that I made a conscious decision that poverty would have no place in my life." You've got to make these life choices. At the counter of success, there are no bargains. You've got to pay the price, and you've got to pay it in full. The average individual is bombarded with 50 million different choices day in and day out. And the majority of those choices we don't have to address, we can avoid. But there are two choices that you must look and confront as soon as you wake up in the morning. Number one, you can accept the circumstances as they are, or number two, you can take the responsibility to change them. Make life choices before life makes those choices for you. The third law of wealth, you got to believe in yourself when no one else will. Here is the one quality, here is the one value that has created more black millionaires than any other attribute. You see, it was faith that will allow Kathy Hughes to endure more than 60 rejections trying to find financing for her first radio station. You see, it was faith that would allow Bob Johnson, no matter where he was with his struggling BET station, he would get on a plane, fly back to Chicago, get a rent-a-car, drive to the home of McDonald's and sit in the lobby of McDonald's headquarters, hoping to find anybody in the marketing department so he could pitch his BET station to. He was trying to find a major sponsor. And it was faith that would allow Damon John to get his struggling FUBU apparel line off the ground. And I said to Damon, what was the defining moment in your life? And he said to me, when I had to burn the furniture. I said, "What do you mean burn the furniture?" He said, "When I finally got financing for my apparel line, I went out and I hired a bunch of seamstresses, and they showed up at my mother's house with all their equipment, and I had no place to store their sewing machines." I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I took all my mother's furniture out of the house, took it to the backyard, and I set it on fire." The wealthy make money while the rest of us make excuses. If you knew who walks beside you on this journey called life, you would never doubt or fear again. And then last but not least, there I am with Tyler Perry. And I asked him, I said, "Tyler, how did you go from poverty, in some circumstances, below poverty, to build one of the most profitable, production companies in Hollywood, $145 million. And his simple reply was, "Nothing but the grace of God. Believe in yourself when no one else will." The fourth law of wealth, to thy own self be true. What is the greatest resource in the world? The greatest resource in the world is the passionate, committed mind. What have you been sent here to do? Do you know your area of excellence? What is your life's purpose? And these black millionaires, they know specifically what they are attempting to do and what they will do. They know their life's purpose. They know their area of excellence. And if you're going to identify your area of excellence, you've got to ask yourself three critical questions. Question number one, what do I love to do? What do I have a passion for? What can I throw my whole heart and soul into? Question number two, what would I do for free? If no one ever paid me a dime, if no one ever gave me a financial reward for my efforts, what would I do for free? Because when you're doing what you love to do and you would do it for free, your work is your play. And if your work is your play, you'll never work a day in your life. And question number three, if you can't answer the two questions, go to those people who you respect and admire and ask, what do you see me as? What do you think I would be good at doing? The average individual in our society gets 4 ideas a year, any one of which, if they had the guts, the courage, the fortitude to chase their dream, will make them financially independent. What is the music that is beating in your heart? What is your life's purpose? If you didn't show up at this particular hour, this particular moment in time, what would the world miss? A career is what you're paid for, but a calling is what you're made for. The fifth law of wealth, how may I serve thee? Service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy, and anybody can serve. I don't care where you are in life, as I discovered in my focus groups and one-on-one interviews with these black millionaires. Anybody can add value. Anybody can wow the customer. Anybody can be the most positive person in the room. Anybody can increase sales, and we can all serve. I want you to take this formula, burn it in your subconscious. Q plus MA equals C. The quality of your service plus the quantity of your service plus the mental attitude in which it is rendered always equals compensation. People will make you rich or people will make you poor depending upon the level of your service. Who taught me that? Valerie Daniels Carter. Valerie Daniels Carter here is a black woman who owns minimum 121 fast food franchises. More than 100 fast food franchises between Burger King and Pizza Hut alone. And what she told me is that anyone can serve. I had a great interview with a young gentleman in Detroit. He's a young millionaire out of Detroit. And when he graduated from college, the only job that he could get was working in one of the top restaurants in the Detroit area. But he took that job and he was passionate and he was thankful for even having the opportunity to work there. And it showed in his countenance and it showed in his service and behavior. Well, one day, one of the highest ranking black females from McDonald's came in there to eat with her husband. She was so impressed with his passion and the way that he delivered service, doing more than what is expected, doing more than what was required. And after leaving a sizable tip, she left her business card on that table. And that business card, on the back of it, she wrote, "Young man, if you are ever interested in owning and operating a restaurant for yourself, please call me first." Well, a couple of months later, he took her up on that offer and he called that number. And she was strategic and Ken Brown buying his first 2 McDonald's restaurants. Add value, wow the customer. Service is the price you pay for the space that we occupy. The 6th law of wealth, thou shalt be in business for thyself. Years ago, I'm in the book line study of Bishop T.D. Jakes. And I'm seated in his study and I'm looking at every book on God's green earth that you would ever want to read, study, or examine in your life. And all of a sudden, here Bishop Jakes walks in. And what do we know about Bishop T.D. Jakes? Well, number one, they told him he would never make it in the ministry. He left Charleston, West Virginia with only 8 members. He didn't finish high school. He went back to get his GED. He has a heavy lisp. And I brought that up during the time of our interview. And I said to him, I said, "Bishop, I said, how in the world did you go from Charleston, West Virginia with only 8 members to building the Potter's House, 191,000 square foot facility with a value of more than $45 million? And he said to me, he says, "Well, young man, my critics weren't altogether wrong. I do have a heavy lisp, and if you hear close enough, you can listen to it, you can hear it." But then he said, "I don't care whether I had to spit, I don't care whether I had to stutter, I don't care whether I had to stammer. I had something to say, and I was going to say it." I said, "Well, Bishop, give me the keys to wealth, give me the keys to prosperity, give me the keys to owning and operating your own business." And he said to me, he said, "Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. But show him how he can buy the pond and no one in his family will ever know struggle." You got to understand this, people. The wealthy work for profits. They do not work for wages. They think 1099, not W-2. The poor keep score by cars and clothes. The middle class, they keep score by degrees and titles. But the wealthy, they keep score by their bank accounts. In today's economy, if you are living off of a single paycheck, you are probably unemployed. And again, Mike Roberts said to me, one half of the Roberts brothers who were on par to be joined billionaire status based in St. Louis, if not now, when? And if not you, why not? And the final law to wealth, number 7, make thy money grow. Never forget, wealth is not what you earn, it's what you keep. If you cannot save 10 to 15% of all your earnings, the seeds of greatness aren't in you. And as a college professor, I know it's tough. I know it's difficult out there for the average African American. I can give you all the data that you want to hear. I know that 27% of African Americans spend more on a weekly basis than what they bring in. 30% have no savings plan at all. I know that 35% of African American children are born and raised in poverty. More than 40% of Black Americans don't even use their bank or a financial institution for their weekly or monthly business transactions. But here is the way out. I know if you cannot start with savings, I know if you cannot buy stocks, if you cannot make your money grow, then begin to retire all debt. Black America, we are the 16th wealthiest country on the face of the earth. Every year, $1.2 trillion in consumer dollars goes through our hands with absolutely nothing to show for it. I was on a radio show just recently and the host said to me, he said, Dr. K, he says, what is $1.2 trillion? And I said, it's easy. I want you to take Bill Gates of Microsoft. I want you to take Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway and take Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, add them together and multiply that by 10. That is $1.2 trillion. Make your money grow. Begin to retire all debt. And before I close out, I've got to tell you that this is not your normal finance book. I tell my readers, and when I crisscross this country and go all across the globe, the wealth choice is not about cash, it's about courage. I'm not telling my readers and I'm not telling my followers to take out a sheet of paper, take out a legal pad, draw a line down the center, and on one side write your assets and on the other side write your liabilities. It takes courage to chase your dream. It takes courage to believe in yourself when no one else will. It takes courage to put yourself on a daily budget. It takes courage to save 10% of everything that you earn. And it takes courage to find a new set of friends, because the personal friends that you associate with right now don't believe you and don't believe in your dream. The wealth choice may not be your best choice. Going back to what Andy Young said to me years ago, it was never about sitting in the front of the bus. It was about owning the bus. The wealth choice is probably our best and only choice.
Oh yeah, you're gonna be tested. But if you knew who walks beside you every day of your life, you would never doubt or fear again. I asked Tyler Perry, I said, Tyler, how in the world did you go from sleeping in your car in New Orleans, sleeping in your car in Atlanta, Georgia, to building a $145 million production studio? He said, nothing but the grace of God.
Yeah.
I asked David John, I said, David, what was the defining moment in your life? He said, when I had to burn the furniture. I said, my brother, what do you mean burn the furniture? He said, when I finally got financing to launch my FUBU line, I hired all these seamstresses and they showed up at my mother's house with all their equipment. I had no place to put the sewing machines. I said, so what did you do? He said, I took all the furniture of my mother's house, put it in the backyard and set it on fire.
Yeah.
See, that's belief. See, you were born with that type of belief. See, you were born with love. Fear is what you learned. Nothing precocious about your God. Where the hell do you think ideas come from? An idea comes from your creator, knocking on your subconscious, asking you, do you want more out of life? Don't you know the average individual gets 4 ideas a year, any one of which, if you have the guts, the courage, the fortitude to chase your dream, will make you financially independent. They ask me all the time, well, what is the difference between the guy who goes ahead and starts his business than the guy who's overcome by fear? I said, both the millionaire, because I interviewed these folks, millionaires are overcome by fear too. You got 2 individuals. Here you got a guy, he's in corporate America for 5 years, jumps out of corporate America, gets sick of his job, chases his dream, starts a business. After 1 year, no one is using his product, no one is using his service. He's scared to death, he's behind on his mortgage. is my one shot and I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And I've seen it over and over again. Hell, I was with Kathy Hughes for 2 days. I sat in that radio station, she slept on the floor. She did that for a year. In that restroom down at the corner, where she and her son bathed in that restroom and they ate off a hot plate. Can you say billionaire? And damn it, shame on you, Black America, shame on you. What that sister did. And I have yet to see her being profiled on TV. Come to my house, sit in my study in Atlanta, Georgia. I'll give you the remote to my flat screen. Cut it on. And you might find Bill Gates being interviewed. You might find Warren Buffett being interviewed. You might find Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn. Chad Hurley of YouTube. But when's the last time you've seen one of your wealth creators being interviewed? You're the only race that does not put your wealth creators on a pedestal. And I'm gonna tell you who has a big problem with that, and that's Malcolm Gladwell. In case you haven't read Malcolm Gladwell, shame on you, you're already behind. Keep your job because you will need it. He wrote Blink, he wrote Tipping Point. Malcolm Gladwell was on a TV being interviewed. And before they wrapped up the interview, the host said, Malcolm, is there any trends out there that have you concerned? That have you really focused, like problems out there you'd like to solve? And he stroked his face and he says, yes, before we wrap up. He said, please tell my viewers, what is it? He says, I'm concerned about the hundreds of thousands of black school children. Then he changed it to millions. He said, I'm concerned about the millions of black school children who live in communities and go to school every day and never see a black man in a suit and tie.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you the same thing Ben Carson told me years ago. What thou seest, that thou beest. Be very particular who you associate with. You hang around 9 broke people, sooner or later you're going to be number 10. You be very particular. So there you are. Focus on unique gifts. Number 5, please go serve somebody. Service is the price you pay for the space that you occupy. I don't care if you're homeless and you're standing on a street corner with a cardboard sign, I will work for food. You got the same opportunity as Bill Gates. The hell do we know about Bill Gates? 54 billion, do the calculus. That's $67,000 a second. You got the same opportunity as Bill Gates. That's killer. You gotta be kidding me. How can you say that? Because anybody can wow the customer. Anybody can do more than what is expected, more than what is required. Anybody can go the extra mile. Anybody can make the eyeballs move. 21 different ways to market or sell a product or service. Don't violate the number 1 law of marketing. What is the number one law of marketing? Make my eyeballs move. 21 different ways you can do that. Number 1 is word of mouth. Number 2, handing out flyers. Number 21 is internet. Right now, there are more than 700 million websites across the globe. You got 240 million right here in the United States. But look, damn it, you don't have a single website geared toward Black America for the positive, spiritual, emotional, and professional uplift of Black America. What is your number 1 website? What is it? hiphopstar.com, hip-hop, whatever that is.
Wow.
Rap shit on steroids. BET 40 years ago. Booty shaking to the max. That's your number 1 website, 1 million hits per day, while the rest of the world is looking at TED Talks. I said enough.
No, you didn't.
Somebody said it couldn't be done, but he with the shovel replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say till he tried. So he buckled right in with a trace of a grin on his face. If he word, he did it. Started to sing as he tackled the thing. That couldn't be done, and he did it. Somebody scoffed, he'll never do that, at least no one ever has done it. He took off his coat, and he took off his hat, and the first thing we know, he would done it. With a lift of his chin and a bit of a grin without any doubting or quitting. He He started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. There are thousands that said it cannot be done. There are thousands of prophecy failure. There are thousands ready to point out to you one by one the dangers that wait to assail you. But with the lift of your chin and a bit of your grin, just take off your coat and go to it. You started to sing as you tackle the thing. There's no financial deficit in this country. There's a spiritual deficit. Everybody talk about the next generation over there, this and that, pants are slagging, this and that. What in the world do you expect? You let these experts we gonna take prayer out of school. If you ain't on crack you need to be, how the hell can you take prayer out of anything? You blindfold me and I'll envision a prayer. Put a sock in my mouth, put some duct tape over my mouth, and I'll hum a prayer. Go out there and get a rock, get a stick, knock me unconscious, I'll dream a prayer. As a matter of fact, I'm praying right now. Our Father who art in heaven.
Yeah.
Spit in his face, I'll show you Martha's Carver. Slam the school door in the face, she becomes Mary the cloud of the Write him off as another fatherless black male, I'll show you Ben Carson. Make him shine your shoes, turns out to be James Brown. Disobey his orders, I'll show you Colin Powell. Blind him, he becomes Stevie Wonder. Rape her, I'll show you Maya Angelou. Tell her she can't lead, she becomes Michelle Obama. Tell her she can't write. Show you Maya Angelou, Toni Morris. Throw him in a prison cell. You got two choices. You got Nelson Mandela, you got Malcolm X. Deny inadequate startup capital. And all the thousands that I interviewed and surveyed, all of them started off at zero. Don Stewart, one of your billionaires, he was $2 million in debt before the tide turned in his favor. But the bottom line, what did Mary tell Martha? He is able.
All right. Sir, with the prophetic word. Yes, sir.
Hey, Jay, all the way from Hawaii.
Sir, with how prophetic you were to us today, speaking to us as adults, I gotta ask the question, what do you say to black teenagers?
Tell them, number one, tell them you love them. My colleagues tell me all the time, how can you tell your students that you love them? We won't say, I hate you. You can't give it till you own it, and I don't own hate. I don't own hate. No, 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 no. What are the three toughest things in the world to do? Number one, return love for hate. Return love for hate. All you gotta do is look at Nelson Mandela, look at Malcolm X, look at Gandhi. They changed the world and none of them had an army. All they did is give love for hate. What in the world do you know about Martin Luther King? Here's a man, 5'7", 177 pounds. Number one, he didn't finish high school. He entered Morehouse at age 15. He skipped 11th grade. I mean, what else do we know? First of all, his name is not Martin. His name was Michael. His father had his name changed to Martin on a family vacation in Germany to honor the German theologian Martin Luther. Number two, got up the same time of day, every day, 6:15 in the morning, ate the same breakfast. Robert, you're gonna be mad at him. Coffee and orange juice. The first hour of the day, prayer and devotion. He had 200 books in his study. Prayer. The man lived in the moment. That's okay, what in the world talking about living in the moment? What's the first thing that I do when I get up in the morning? Prayer and devotion. I go down to my study, I get centered, I give my first 5 or 10 minutes of the day to my Creator to smooth out the bumps, then I read my prayer and devotion. What's the last thing I do before this head hits the pillow?
Prayer and devotion?
Yeah. I end the day with my closing prayer, so I live my life between two prayers. What else do we know about Martin Luther King? 3 times his house was firebombed. And each time his wife and 4 kids were in that house. You didn't even know Martin Luther King owned a gun, did you? Yeah, he owned a gun until he came to the realization, man, I'm the father of nonviolence, threw it away. 1963, gave more than 300 speeches, traveled more than 300,000 miles to give 300 speeches, always flew first class. Not the king, yeah, he's got to fly first class. No, he didn't fly first class because of his ego, because he was narcissistic. The reason why he always flew first class, when he got to the airport, when he got to the terminal, when he got to the gate, when the other passengers on that flight saw who was going to be on that plane with them, no one wanted to sit next to him. Some of them called the pilot and the flight attendants out, why couldn't we put him that he would walk, I'll throw him on the first class. Never earned more than $10,000 over the course of his life. Now my hotshot know-it-all NBA student, Dr. Kimbrough, he did win the Nobel Prize, and with that came a cash windfall. I said, yeah. But he gave every dime back to the movement except $10,000. He had to borrow $10,000 from his father-in-law to pay his taxes. Return love for hate. The one thing I never let my students pass on. First day of my class, I said, everybody pull out a sheet of paper and you write the number 30 on that sheet of paper, and I want you to scotch paper to your mirror and look at it every day. Look at that number 30, day in and day out. What is significant about the number 30? Over the course of his adult life, he averaged minimum 30 racial prank-filled phone calls per day. Phone ring, nigga, I know it, click. Phone ring, nigga, I'm gonna kill you, click. Phone ring, nigga, I'm gonna kill your parents, click. And you can't reach your goals. And you can't be bigger than what you are. And you can't make a difference. And you can't say, damn it, enough is enough. If any other race was burdened with half of their young males finishing high school, they'd be picketing in the street right now. If that happened to Jewish man, Asian man, Irish, Polish, Catholic, you couldn't even walk down the thoroughfares right now and say, no, we ain't going out like this. But us, business as usual. Every 92 seconds of the day, a black child born to a teen mother. Every 90 seconds of the day, a black child born to a teen mother who will never finish high school. Every 90 seconds of the day, black male suspended. Every 4 minutes of the day, black male convicted of a violent crime. Every 40 minutes of the day, a black male dies. And no one says a thing. No one